She said, because I know Rick is still hurting.
It got really, really bad.
Rick Harrison, the well-known face behind the hit reality series Pawn Stars, has long kept his private life out of the public eye. However, that changed recently when his third ex-wife, Deanna Burdett, broke her silence after 7 years of keeping quiet since their divorce. In a candid interview on an independent podcast channel based in Nevada, Deanna opened up about their marriage, revealing a deeply strained and emotionally distant relationship. She described their union as a performative marriage, one that prioritized Rick's public image over genuine family values. According to her, Rick lived in a world centered entirely around his own career, with little regard for the needs or voices of others in the household. One of the more striking claims Deanna made was about Rick's dominating role in daily life, from controlling the family schedule to making major decisions like vacations or home purchases without consulting her. "I had no voice in anything," she said. Deanna also noted that Rick was often away for long periods due to Pawn Stars-related events, despite initial promises that she would be involved in backstage activities. This distance, both physical and emotional, extended to her 3 children from a previous marriage. While Rick was never openly hostile, she said, he remained detached and uninvolved even during family milestones such as birthdays and holidays. Adding to the sense of isolation, Deanna recalled how she was kept out of the public eye intentionally. Though initially introduced as someone who might participate in the show's offstage events, she was later barred from press appearances and public functions. Rick allegedly insisted this was to keep the media away from the family, but Deanna believed it was more about protecting his clean public image. Despite years of disagreements and emotional distance, Rick rejected her suggestions for marriage counseling, saying it was her issue, not his. By the end of their marriage, their communication had almost entirely broken down. Even with these revelations, Deanna made it clear she had no desire to slander Rick. She acknowledged his intelligence, ambition, and success, but drew a sharp distinction between the person capable of building a brand and the one capable of building a family. She said a decision to speak out now came not from bitterness, but from a sense of fairness, especially after Rick began making public statements about their family, particularly following the tragic death of his son, Adam. Deanna felt it was finally her turn to share her side of the story. So far, Rick Harrison has not publicly responded to Deanna's comments. The public reaction has been mixed. While some support Deanna's right to finally speak out, others question her timing, suggesting she's seeking attention during Rick's period of personal grief. Still, her account sheds light on the hidden complexities behind Rick Harrison's rise from an ordinary businessman to a reality television icon. To understand why Deanna felt left behind, one must look back at Rick's journey to success, a path where the demands of fame eventually eclipsed the presence of those closest to him. Born in 1965 in Lexington, North Carolina, Rick was one of 4 children. At just 8 years old, he was diagnosed with epilepsy, which kept him out of school for long periods and confined him to the house. This isolation led Rick to develop a deep love for books, especially those about history and business. In 1981, after his parents' real estate ventures failed, the family relocated to Las Vegas, marking the beginning of what would eventually become Rick's empire and the Pawn Stars phenomenon. Rick Harrison, best known as the face of the hit reality series Pawn Stars, began his career working alongside his father, Richard the Old Man Harrison, at a small coin and collectibles shop. This modest venture eventually evolved into the gold and silver pawn shop. In the beginning, their focus was on buying and reselling antiques, watches, and jewelry, catering primarily to locals and tourists. A major turning point came in 1989 when the shop was officially licensed as a pawn business. Rick quickly proved himself with a keen eye for item valuation and counterfeit detection skills that would later distinguish him on television. With a sharp business strategy and clear market insight, the shop had grown significantly by 2005, issuing over $3 million in loans annually and building a solid reputation in Las Vegas. The biggest breakthrough came in 2009 when, after years of pitching the concept, Rick signed a deal with Left Field Pictures to bring the pawn shop to television. Pawn Stars premiered on the History Channel in July of that year, immediately drawing viewers with its unscripted look into the buying, selling, and appraisal of unique items. Rick emerged as a central figure on the show, leading transactions and serving as a public face of the business. He was joined by his father, his son Corey Harrison, and longtime friend Austin Chumley Russell, forming a dynamic team whose chemistry and on-screen negotiations captivated audiences. The show became the History Channel's most popular program for several years. Outside of television, Rick expanded his personal brand. In 2011, he published his memoir, License to Pawn, offering insights into his life, business, and behind-the-scenes experiences from the show. The book became a New York Times bestseller. He also became a spokesperson for various products and made guest appearances on shows such as The Middle and iCarly. As Pawn Stars reached its peak popularity from 2011 to 2016, Rick's life changed dramatically. His schedule became packed with media appearances, book tours, and brand expansion efforts, transforming him from a local businessman into a widely recognized television personality. However, with professional success came personal challenges. Despite his growing fame, Rick's private life became increasingly guarded. His wife at the time, Deanna Barnett, was never featured on Pawn Stars, though she lived with him and managed many household responsibilities. Over time, Rick's relationships with friends, family, and even members of the show began to shift. The growing demands of fame contributed to tensions in his personal life and began to affect his marriage. Rick's first marriage was to Kim Harrison in the early 1980s, shortly after he turned 18. Kim supported Rick through his early struggles in Las Vegas, and the couple had two sons, Corey in 1983 and Adam in 1985. However, the marriage dissolved after 3 years, and Kim withdrew entirely from public life. While she remained close to her sons, little else is known about her today. Rick then married Tracy Harrison in 1986, and this became his longest relationship, lasting over 2 decades. They had one son together, Jake Harrison. Before Pawn Stars, Tracy was believed to have quietly helped Rick with the shop. As Rick's fame grew, she receded from the spotlight, never appearing publicly with him or being acknowledged in media coverage. Their relationship gradually deteriorated, largely due to Rick's constant absence from family events and vacations. By 2011, they quietly divorced without public attention or statements. After a series of asset disputes, Tracy completely withdrew from the public eye and all media platforms. Rick Harrison, following 2 quietly ended marriages, made an unexpected move by going public with his relationship with Deanna Barnett in early 2012. They married in July 2013, but the relationship ended 7 years later. During their marriage, Rick had no biological children with Deanna, though he lived with her 3 daughters from a previous relationship. According to Deanna, Rick never truly created a cohesive family environment, and his reluctance to mention her at public events reflected a persistent emotional distance. Beyond these 3 official marriages, Rick also married Amanda Palmer in 2021. This turned out to be his shortest marriage, lasting only about 2 years, and it went mostly unnoticed by the media. Amanda never appeared at public events with Rick, and their divorce, finalized in late 2023, was attributed to lifestyle differences. Amanda preferred a quiet life, while Rick remained focused on expanding his television brand across several states. Over the course of more than 40 years, Rick's personal life has been marked by a cycle of marriages and divorces, painting a picture far removed from the tough, composed persona he projects on screen. Despite his generally private nature, the silence from former partners Kim, Tracy, Amanda hint at the challenges of being close to someone whose career always took precedence. This pattern of broken relationships, coupled with Rick's emotional detachment, formed a backdrop to the most devastating chapter of his life, the death of his son, Adam Harrison. On January 19, 2024, Adam Harrison, Rick's second son, was confirmed dead in Las Vegas from a drug overdose caused by a combination of fentanyl and methamphetamine substances central to the ongoing opioid crisis in the United States. Adam was 39. His death brought an outpouring of grief not only from the family but also from fans who knew him through Rick, even though Adam was largely absent from the public eye. He had briefly worked at the pawn shop before stepping away when the Pawn Stars show began. Rick had explained that Adam preferred a private life, and the two maintained a low-profile relationship for years. In response to Adam's death, Rick released a heartfelt statement on social media, saying, "My heart is broken. My son Adam died from a drug overdose. The fentanyl crisis is stealing an entire generation." With that, Rick unexpectedly found himself at the heart of a national conversation on the drug epidemic in America. Soon after, he gave a raw, emotional interview on In Depth with Graham Bensinger, where he openly grieved and criticized the government for what he saw as a failure to control fentanyl's flow across borders. However, public reaction was mixed. While many sympathized with his pain, others questioned the closeness of his relationship with Adam. Observers pointed out that Rick had rarely, if ever, mentioned Adam publicly, in stark contrast to his son Coy, who frequently appeared with him on the show. Even former Pawn Stars staff members admitted that Adam was hardly ever discussed. One anonymous producer noted, everything revolved around Coy, Chumlee, and the show. The skepticism grew as Rick increased his public appearances advocating for stricter fentanyl control, leading some to suggest he might be using the tragedy to rehabilitate his public image following personal setbacks. Deanna Burdett, his ex-wife, avoided commenting directly on Adam's death, but subtly implied in an interview that Rick had missed opportunities to build stronger family ties long before the tragedy occurred. Coy Harrison posted a single old photo of Adam with the caption, "Rest easy, brother," and made no further public statements, continuing his role on Pawn Stars as usual. His silence added fuel to speculation about deeper rifts within the Harrison family rumors that had circulated for years. In the wake of Adam's passing, Rick became increasingly visible in the media, speaking at a public health conference in Los Angeles, granting interviews to major outlets like Fox News and the Daily Mail, and even signing a petition demanding stricter border inspections. While some saw this as a genuine mission fueled by personal loss, others believed it was a calculated move to regain public favor amid his turbulent personal history. Regardless of public opinion, one thing remains clear. Adam Harrison's death profoundly altered Rick's life, not only in the emotional realm but also in how he chooses to present himself to the world.